So thanks again for having me. Feel nervous, you know, uh, and I love to talk. I'm a great talker, but I'm going to take a minute and ask everyone to join in on that minute just to kind of ground to the meeting and just be here and um, ask my higher power for whatever I'm supposed to hear or share that I can receive it um, and not resist it. I'm going to close my door because the wind is making it go open and close here. Oh, I can't reach it. Hang on. Okay. All right. So I am Michelle, and I am a functional adult today. I am a functional adult today. And that brings tears to my eyes. So I'm a good crier. I'm a good emotional feeler. So be prepared. It's all good shit. I am a functional adult today. That feels really right and true for me today. Now, 5 minutes from now could be a whole nother story. I could be a 5-year-old cranky sassiness person. So, and that's what kind of life is about for me. I'm aware of a lot of my parts and pieces, and I'm feeling guided to just start off with a little bit of what I was remembering from Janet Wowitz, who is one of the more founders way back in the day. This book was presented to me, and I don't even remember how it was, but it was around, you know, when I first kind of dabbled a little bit. So in this particular book, at the end, she has a writing, and it's called Recovery is Discovery. Remember that recovery is a process. You have not failed if something you thought you had resolved pops up in another form. It may now be on a deeper level. You have not failed if you go through a stressful time and find yourself reverting to old behaviors. I found my child within today, for many years, so locked away, loving, embracing, needing so much. If only I could reach in and touch. I did not know this child of mine. We were never acquainted at 3 or 9. But today I felt the crying inside. I'm here, I shouted. Come reside. We hugged each other ever so tight as feelings emerged of hurt and fright. It's okay, I sobbed. I love you so. You are precious to me. I want you to know. My child, you are safe today. You will not be abandoned. I'm here to stay. We laughed, we cried. It was a discovery. This warm, loving child is my recovery. And that was written by Kathleen Elgo in 1989. Recovery is, as they say, one day at a time. Lots of emotions, lots of good emotions I'm feeling. I'm like, yeah, she's here. My kids are here. Um, and I'll just do, I am also recovering. I'm a grateful member of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how I just identify it. I do not share I am an alcoholic. I feel that this is my first. This is my first. And I've had a hard time saying I am an alcoholic. I am a grateful member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and truly, because the shaping of Alcoholics Anonymous for me, coming in at age 22 years old, physically, not emotionally, helped shape some practices in my life that I am grateful for today. So, in saying that, I'll do just a touch of a background just to get because that's what I'm used to. Share my experience, strength, and hope with you of what I was like, what happened to me, and what I'm like now. Because that's most of my life right now is all about recovery. It's not about the past as much anymore. It's about being in touch with how I feel in the moment as experiences and situations arise, and how do I deal with those moments when I know I feel like I'm 5 or I'm 12 or I'm 16 or I'm a young adult and just wants to go crazy on everything. So and having that all be integrated into this person that you see right here, right now, in this very present moment on screen, which is still bizarre, So anyway, yes. Did I come from an alcoholic family? Absolutely. My father was a classic alcoholic, high functioning. Mother, classic codependent para-alcoholic. My parents were older. My mom had me when she was 43 years old. So I had older parents. I was kind of already resentful about that because I didn't, the long and short of it, I just didn't feel connected to my parents. I didn't have that feeling of love and stuff, like what I may have seen with some of my friends or something like that. But I also have an older brother. He's 6 years older than I, and he was my best friend. I mean, he and I, we played games and, all of that. And then, he started to become older and he was doing what normal kids, older siblings do, is they start to break away, and I was, slowly being left alone with just my mother and father, etc. We talk about early memories and things like that. My earliest memory, I thought, was at 5, and that feeling was fear, which then just directed the rest of my life. But I actually had come into some other memories as a result of going through the workbooks, which I absolutely love and am grateful for that I went through the yellow workbook and the laundry trait workbook, which that one speaks to me more. Because it's my behaviors of how I've survived and how they still will, as that reading said, I've not failed. It's just that they've changed clothes and got back in line in a different way. It's so subtle because this disease for me is subtle. My behavior traits will still come out. And if I'm not in touch with my body and my sense, I won't see it. And that's okay. I may see it another way or eventually. But anyway, so fear was my first feeling, but prior to 5 years old, I did remember through collaging some old photos and going through the workbooks of tension. I felt tension growing up in around 3 or 4. And what I found out through I have a half sister, was that she used to come and get me a lot because my mother and father apparently were arguing or something like that. I spent a lot of time, my brother and I, over at her house, and she had told me that there was, challenges in their marriage or whatever they were fighting about. So what's the deal? So I never, oh God, the long and short of it, I grew up feeling unworthy, not enough, less than, not connected. I have this, it was funny, before we started, I have collaged 4 different boards of myself at various ages. And one of the boards had, I don't know if you can see this little image. It's not a picture, but it's, hey, how many people have felt like that, right? On the outside looking in kind of thing, and it fell off and I don't know which one it was. And I'm like trying to make it fit somewhere. on the board. I was like, where did it go? You know, I'm trying to make it fit again. And partner was here and she goes, maybe it doesn't go anymore. I'm like, oh, duh, maybe it doesn't. You know, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just doesn't fit anymore. I'm not on the outside looking in anymore because of all the freaking work I've done on myself and have been willing to do, and at times have not been willing to do. So, you know, my experience growing up was verbal abuse from my father, some religious abuse. Not now, when I use the word abuse, I still don't like that word. It's just because it's what the word is. You know, was I neglected at times in my formative years? Yes. Were my parents there for me emotionally? No. Did they do that intentionally? I know now, no. You know, the generational shit, the bundle that I was carrying was not mine. My mother's shame, my mother's lack of. And now I'm able to say, boy, yes, they did do the best they can. And I still have feelings about it. I have feelings about it. Damn it, I wish they would have shown me some things of how to live adult situations, but they didn't have it to give. And right there, when I just said, but they didn't have it to give, is a minimization of how I feel, how my feelings can be. And I did that a lot, especially in the meetings, because a lot of other people have experienced a lot more traumas in their life. And I thought, well, my emotional abuse, neglect abuse, somewhat religious abuse, the guilt and shame thing, it's not as bad as what other people went through, rapes and all, whatever happened. And thankfully, the literature has shown me that emotional abuse is a real thing. Neglect is a real thing. Yes, I had food, water, clothing, home, but I did not get the emotional connection I needed as a child growing up. I got fear, I got confusion, I was the computer scanner coming through the door. What is dad like today? Has he got a good smile on? How should I act? How should I feel today? Should I just stay outside? Do I go in or do I go out? Do I hibernate in my room and play with my stuffed animal? Where should I be? It never was like, hi, honey, how are you? What was school like? No, I didn't get any of that. You know, no, it wasn't that. It was, and my mother was, oh my God, she was so needy. You know, I guess in some ways I was somewhat maybe parentified. I don't know, but she was very needy, very touchy-feely because she and my father had a horrible, you know, they weren't, they loved each other, but the relationship was not healthy at all. So I got to watch, I got to listen, and I got to hear things as I grew up, and I took it all in. You know, my father was verbally not a nice man. He, you know, nothing I ever did was good enough. You know, I would draw something. I was very creative as a kid and wanted to go to school, at art school. And he said something to me around the teenage years. And I wasn't one of those kids that I'll show you, I'm going to go get pile high, you know, all the degrees. I was the other way. I was the more depressive side. I was like, wow, I guess he's right. And I just took it in and I did not go to art school. I, I went to community college and did some fine arts and stuff like that. But so much confusion growing up. Money, you know, there was, you know, we had enough, but I always felt like I was less than because all my other friends had houses and stuff, and we lived in apartment complexes. I lived in apartment complexes from the age of 5 to 18. So I never had a house, and then I always wanted a house, and then I got a house older and in new recovery. And lost it because it was the way of the times. It was real estate was not well. Anyway, so that's that. You know, I moved out of my parents' house at 18. I couldn't take it anymore. My father's verbal abuse was just on me. I always felt like I was under his thumb. It was daily. Couldn't it just? I finally was able to get out. And so at 18 to 22, short period of time, there was all the ways that I just wanted to feel something. And so drinking was a part of that. My first drunk was at 16, and it was over. That was, I'll show you, Dad. I was pissed at my father and I got drunk. you know, I was at a 16th birthday party. I got downright drunk, and it started, I learned how to lie, right? Just anything to just not get in trouble with my father. I was afraid of my father's anger. Um, I was just afraid that that kind of thing. And I was a lonely kid, way lonely. I played soccer by myself. How do you do that? All right, excuse me, football, or on the English side. um, so soccer, I was the goalie and the forward. I mean, I would kick the ball and run to try to block it. I mean, that's how. I mean, I just did a lot of stuff by myself. So sports saved me. Sports helped me feel like, wow, people see me, people hear me, people want me. I was good. My teachers, PE teachers at the time were very supportive in my life. Not caregivers, but I felt I got the praise because I didn't get a lot of praise at home. And so sports and art were my thing. That's how I released a lot of my creativity. And then um, so the drinking, the drugging, and sex, yeah, I found sex. I found, you know, that to be. I was the song. I was looking for love in all the wrong places. If you know that song, that was my life. That was what I. If I had an inkling that you liked me in some way, the love and sex thing got confused. There was no separation. I didn't know how to separate. Someone was being nice to me because they were being nice to me, not that they wanted to have sex with me, but I thought sex was part of love. Um, so I was looking for love in all the wrong places. And at that time, for me, I was confused because I had started having some sensations and feelings and thoughts about women, girls when I was growing up, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't know what to do with all of that. I used to have like little dreams about uh, uh, picking up the books that fell out of one of my classmates' hands, and I'd help her with her books, like very innocent kind, things that are kind of like maybe normal, but I didn't know they were or weren't. So I also had been dealing with that, again. So there's another thing. I'm not fitting in anywhere. I don't fit in with my family. I'm not fitting in with I knew a lot of people from school, high school and stuff. I was kind of like considered the jock. I was friends with the druggies and friends with the jocks. I was friends with everybody. I wanted everybody to like me, I think most people liked me, my friends. Never brought friends home, of course not. Can't do that. So just to concise this up and get into the recovery part is, from age of 18 to 22, that was the height of my using of anything and everything. Drinking, I used to call using drugs as condiments. I had a little pepper, a little salt. I'd use, a little bit of cocaine, a little speed. And I was doing all that just because it was there. I was doing all that because it felt good. Um, it it took away everything that was in my head, because what was going on in my head was I heard the voices. You're a worthless piece of shit. You're going to never amount to anything. You can't do anything right. I mean, it was on a loop. The shitty committee, whatever you want, whatever works for you. Shitty committee, the critical parent. I mean, it was all up in there having a party. I used to disassociate with television. I was a walking TV guide. I could tell you what was on what channel, what time, you know. The Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, you know, back in the day for me. Starsky and Hutch, oh yeah. Charlie's Angels, loved them. You know, NBC, ABC, 7 p.m. Sunday night. That was that person. That was one way I could feel like I was something, I guess. So I also got a DUI. I got in a car accident, all of it. Um, I did have an abortion, and I share that only because part of my story, I never thought I'd ever want kids, but I was so young, not in a good place, and I made a decision. It was as a conscious, as honest decision as I could possibly make at that time in my life. Do I have regrets about that? I've had, and I've also dealt with a lot of healing around that piece. You know, to think that, you know, I'm 59 years old, I'd have like a 30-something-year-old kid. It's like, wow, kind of blows my mind out. But I have done a lot of healing around that. So November 4th, 1987, I got into recovery. I got into AA, and I stayed. Did a little Al-Anon. Back then, ACA was not quite off the ground at all. It was, and if it was a shit show. Because we had all these wounded kids in a meeting just dumping, and it was way too much for me at the time. So Al-Anon kind of buffered a little bit. Again, I was in and out of relationships, looking for love again, and finally came out, had some excitement. I was definitely addicted to some excitement. It was the highs of the internal drugstore hits by getting into relationships, experiencing with women at the time. So Alcoholics Anonymous, doing all the steps, being a sponsor, not being a sponsor, all of it was helpful up until a point. And it finally, it's not it. Alcoholics Anonymous works. And then if I think about it, all the people in Alcoholics Anonymous most probably can qualify for this. So here we are, you know, we have people in AA that are exhibiting their traits onto me. And all I heard in AA most of the time was my father's voice. I can't do it right because I'm having feelings, so I better go get another sponsee or read another book or go do some service work. Still feeling like shit. Nothing's taking this pain away that I have inside. Al-Anon helped to say no to things, and that I wasn't responsible, and that I could be the best daughter I could be with my parents were still alive. And yeah, so how I got to ACA, check time again. I didn't start my time. That's unfortunate. Okay. Anyway, give myself. Okay, so I got to ACA through after being in a 19+ year relationship with my partner at the time. She and I finally came to the end of ourselves. Our premise of, and this is how it goes. It was basically, we were sponsee in AA early on. 8 years of sobriety, I realized there was a turning point, and that was the turning point. I needed something to do differently in AA. And we became friends, sponsor, and then friends. And, you know, the attention and the love that I received confused in my mind. You know, there was something going on for me. Did some work there. And then her mother died. I'm from Rochester, New York. And that's where we were from. and her mom died and she was going to leave and go to Arizona. Well, guess what that did? It certainly activated my fear of abandonment. Oh my God. I didn't want to not be around her. I didn't know what was happening for me. I just didn't want to, I just knew that. My father was still alive. This was back in 98. And so I had gone to college, by the way, and got a 4-year degree. Yay. Never thought I could do that. That was in recovery. I became a teacher, PE teacher. And so anyway, so I was done with all that and working part-time, and my mom and dad were still alive. They were actually separated. My mom left my dad at 70 years old, finally, to take care of herself, but they were still connected. He'd call her, bye, honey, gonna go to bed. Okay, bro. They were still connected. Anyway, so I made the decision to go along, to move to Arizona. And it was really a convoluted decision. It was like, why not? Oh my God, and how can I leave my mother? Because my mother and I were very enmeshed. We didn't know who was where, and it was and I wanted to cut the umbilical cord so terrible. I thought, well, this is a great way to do that. So it was very mixed with why I got out here. So moved out to Arizona, and my relationship with my partner at that time, we were just friends. So we dissolved the sponsor-sponsee thing. We were just friends. We cohabitated, in the same home, and we supported each other, etc., and blah blah blah. And then things started happening, and we started talking. And long and short is that she expressed her feelings for me, and of course I'm going to say yes. I wanted to be loved, and I believe that that was really sincere at the time. But my traits, my disease, sneaky, and they're just wanting everything that I could get. I was, at that time, I was sober at 22. So at the time we moved out here, I was 30 something, young 30s. Still didn't know, I didn't have a lot of self esteem yet. I mean, I didn't know if I could take care of myself. I did work, I did have a full-time job working. I was PE teacher and I was a part-time real estate agent. And we lived with each other for about about a year or two, and then she kicked me out because I was being an immature 30 something. I was. I was not holding up to my end of, like, being a responsible adult. I'm in a 30 something body, but emotionally I was not coming from that place. I was coming from, I want you to do it for me. I don't want to have to lift a finger. I don't want to have to work. I don't want to have to do anything. Now, I'm not consciously thinking that, but that's what's driving me. And I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. So she kicked me out for a year, and it was the best thing. And then that's how we realized that she did. A year later, she expressed her love for me, and we moved back in together, and we stayed for 19 years. Now, through those 19 years, did I have a small intuitive voice say something to me that I did not pay attention to because I didn't know what it really was? It said something like this: at 5 years of, well, not 5 years of sobriety, but 4 or 5 years into our relationship, I had this sense of, like, just go, drop everything and leave. And I'm like, what? No. And that was the earliest sign that I wasn't happy. I was living in a codependent relationship. I was doing everything to survive, to not lose the love, to not lose the protection, the delusion of safety and emotional support, which was there. I'm not saying that this relationship was horrible. It's just that this is what I lived in. I thought I was living in a really wonderful relationship. We had a house, we had 2 dogs, we had a pool, we had her family, not my family. But, it was like, it seemed like a life. Keyword seemed. I was dying on the inside. I was dying on the inside in AA, and I was dying in the inside with this relationship because I didn't want to not be alone. I didn't think I could take care of myself. So eventually I slowly, as this program says, why do we come to ACA? As it says in the Red Book, usually because of some emotional break or something. I don't remember the exact words. And that's what happened. Finally, we came to the end of ourselves. We were fighting more. We were both not happy with ourselves. And it came off sideways onto each other. You. And you got the you going out and you got the 3 pointing back. We're both in this together. It's not one or the other. So in 2019, I was the one that finally said something and said that, we had been talking about not being together, but finally I said in front of another friend, because my friend, God does work for us in ways that it's just amazing. We had a friend over for dinner and she said to us, "Hey, you guys have such a great relationship. I wanted to get some tips from you." And I like died. It was like we were on the cusp of we're not going to be in. And I said that out loud. And the shock that came over my partner at the time is because what happened is I took the power away from her in saying it. And I upset the apple cart because I finally spoke up for myself and what I needed. So therein starts the journey in ACA, because 2019, I was finally on my own. I did my hospital stay, is what I call it. My friend Susan, um, she allowed me to stay in her home for about almost 2 years, year and a half, and that was where my recovery room. It's where I did ACA on Zoom, got into the workbooks. A friend of mine was sharing it on a Zoom meeting in Pennsylvania, and she goes, "Hey, you want to come listen to ACA?" Okay, sure. We went to that meeting every week. We did the workbooks in a small private group, and we basically, all four of us stayed in that every Friday at 4 p.m. No matter what. We all talked about, it's like, no, we're in this. We're not going to say, "Oh, well, I don't feel like going," or, "Oh, I'm going to," it was commitment to this work. And I'm so grateful because out of that, I ended up going to a 5-day intensive at a facility where a lot of the people that we read about, Claudia Black, Tion Dayton, all these other very professional people have done a lot of work, present programs to this place. And I did an experiential for 5 days, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced because I realized how much my mother was, is how much of her stuff I was carrying. I thought it was about my dad, and it's not. It was. I got him. I understood. He was an alcoholic. But my mother, that was so much more. The para-alcoholism is so much subtler and hard to see. And I didn't realize how much I had taken on. Her guilt, her shame. She was older woman, had a kid at 43. I don't think, my mother went without affection and touch and sex probably for the duration of her life and even prior to that. And, I have experienced some of that. Healthy touch and affections is like, I used to thirst for it. And then again, I didn't know where the boundary line was, affection turning into this or that. And so I get to experience that today. I get to play with that and I get to know where it all fits in my life. Why did I go there? I don't know. What was I talking about? I'm a Gemini, so I'm an air sign. I go from one end to the other. Anyway, so my journey in ACA has been an amazing journey. Has it been easy? No. Has it been hard? Yes. Has it been sloppy? Yes. Does it feel like it's never going to end? Sometimes, yes. I believe for me that this journey will be a one day at a timer, and it will continue to reveal things to me that I never thought about myself. Everything I thought I was going to be, I'm not. It's twisted my whole life upside down. The Janet, well, going back to the Janet Wowitz, and then I'm going to wrap up a little bit here. prior to what I just read, it says, recoverer beware. And she mentions, the process of recovery for adult children is very disruptive because it changes everything I ever thought about myself. I thought I wanted to be around a lot of people because that's what I wanted. I wanted a quote unquote big family. I had lots of friends. So I thought, but were they quality friends? No. I didn't know how to make friends. So ACA has shown me how to make friends. How do I have friends? And it's okay if I don't like everybody, because I don't like everybody. And that's a thing for me to not be. I'm afraid to say that because you might be upset with me or you might get mad at me, and all the traits start rolling around in my brain again. I'm like, I don't have to be everybody's friend. I can share love and compassion for someone, which I do try to practice, and I don't have to be around them. I want to surround myself with people who are willing to do the work and to be honest and to, hopefully be able to hear things that maybe they don't want to hear. I've experienced that. I try to have compassion for when people are stuck in what they're stuck in, and not say I don't want to be better than or less than. And I'm trying to have compassion for that. And on top of that, I also don't have to expose myself if I don't feel like I can be there. That's been really hard for me, and that's hard for me to really even say right now because I'm like, oh, but it's true because I don't know if I'm just because I'm getting older. It's like I don't have patience, or it's not intolerance. It's like I want to be, I want to have, and I am having a life beyond my wildest dreams right now. I truly am. And I have areas that need work and need help. I do. My health, in terms of addressing going to the doctors and things like that, that's a really hard area for me and my kids. They're like, I don't want to go. No, it'll just be okay. you know, and it's not always okay. I need to have some things done, and I'm afraid. And I know that other people have gone through stuff, so I can take care of it by that. And I drag my feet. I do. I'm like, well, I'll call them on Monday. Tuesday comes, Wednesday comes. Oh, I'll call them Friday. I need work in that area. Career, job, that kind of stuff. I have my own business. Never wanted to be my own boss, but I tell you what, I like it. I get to make my own schedule. I get to go to work when I want to go to work. I haven't mentioned anything about God and higher power. Yes, all the way through. I do my best to connect with higher power. And my higher power is ever changing. My higher power is now within me and all around me. My higher power are my kids. Here's Winnie the Pooh. Pooh's 50 something years old. And Pooh has all of my pain, whatever. And then there's been additions behind me. God, I just lost my thought. Anyway, it feels like a natural pause right there. But this program works. I hated all those stupid things. This program works if you work it. I'm like, but it's true. The little tiny word it's if I make an effort. It doesn't matter how big or small. That's part of the problem for me is I think I have to do all or nothing. Well, there's a whole chapter in one of the workbooks about all or nothing thinking, and I thankfully don't. I try to be aware of all that and be mindfully aware of everything as much as I can. Not to the microscopic level, but just to feel my body. There's just a wonderful life in front of me, and I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I can be excited about that. Anyway, I'm going to end on that, and I just want to say thank you for everyone listening and supporting yourself and this meeting and others the best I can. And I'm just going to say out loud, you have my permission. Okay, if I said anything that resonates with you, please feel free to respond. and say whatever you wish, as long as it's kind, helpful, loving, sweet. And thanks again, and I pass.